5 indoor plants that are easy to maintain, hard to kill, pest and infestation resistant, easily available and beneficial as well. Hi everyone, I'm Anusha and in my channel Nest Artfully, I talk about everything home decor, DIYs and plant care. Today's video, I'm really happy to be talking about plants once again. So I get questions like, what are your suggestions for some indoor plant options that are really easy to maintain, hard to kill, pest and infestation resistant. So I hope this video will answer all those questions. It's a great set of plants that you can get if you're an absolute beginner on your plant journey. But if you also have some plants and you would like to add some more plants that are easy to maintain, then this is the video for you. So the first plant we are going to be talking about today is the Sansevieria. It's also commonly called the snake plant or mother-in-law's tongue. Now there are about 60 varieties of this plant, so it offers a lot of diversity and variety in terms of how the foliage looks. There are leaves that are cylindrical, leaves that are really broad, leaves that are narrow and tall, and leaves that are stumpy and short. So you can really take your pick. I have the Sansevieria laurenti here, which has this distinct yellow border across the green leaf, and I have the Sansevieria moonshine. Now these two plants, in my personal opinion, have been incredibly easy to care for. So let's look at the plant care requirements. Number one is the light requirements. Now this plant is very popular as a low light tolerant plant. But I have to clarify, it is low light, not no or zero light. So any plant requires some amount of sunlight to thrive, to grow well. So now if you have this plant and if you have more space within your home which does not receive sufficient bright sunlight but receives some amount of indirect sunlight, then this plant will do really well. If you put it in too much of a dark corner, it would still survive, but you won't see it putting out new shoots and growing very tall. So that is something to keep in mind. But in terms of light requirements, yes, this is a very easy plant for indoor option. Now when we talk about water, I often feel that people tend to lean towards either underwatering their plants or overwatering their plants. Now this is perfect for people who underwater their plants. So if you're someone who forgets to water your plant, then the snake plant is an absolutely incredible choice for you, because they don't like to be in moist environments too often. So ideally you look at watering a snake plant once in maybe a fortnight if it's in a very bright location, or even just once a month if it is in an indirect bright sunlight sort of environment within the home. So I water these guys about once a month, and it's recommended that when you water them, you do so thoroughly until you see water leaking out from the bottom. Now what's really important is that the plant is in a planter which has drainage holes at the bottom so that excess water can drain away. So light and watering is done. Now let's look at pruning. So pruning, you don't really have to prune a snake plant because it's not going to encourage growth or any sort of benefit. The only time I would say you want to cut a leaf is if you see a bacterial or fungal spot. They typically present as yellow or brown mushy spots on the leaf, and that is something that you want to immediately cut and get rid of. Do not try to propagate it or keep it at for whatever purpose, just get rid of it. Other than that, I don't really see a reason where you would want to cut your leaves. Unlike what you might see on a perfect Instagram post, the leaves don't always necessarily grow straight upwards. They do tend to lean, and that's okay. They are fine, they are healthy. If it bothers you too much, you could tie a little thread around it to encourage a little more of a vertical growth. But if they lean, that's fine. If it annoys you too much, you could cut that leaf and use it for further propagation. So one important aspect to keep in mind when it comes to propagating these guys is that you can do it in two methods. One is by leaf cutting and the other is by rhizome or root division. So typically when you look at, I've uprooted this guy just to be able to show it to you. So you have the roots here, and when it typically lets an offshoot, it will develop a root base, and then you will see another offshoot grow, which hasn't happened in this particular plant. But then you can divide that offshoot with its own set of roots and then plant it to maintain the variety. So it will be another Sansevieria moonshine that you've propagated. Now for this particular plant, the Sansevieria laurenti, As you can see that I have some leaves here. So now this is something that broke unfortunately from the mother plant, and now if I were to propagate this via leaf cutting, I can do so both by putting it in a little bit of water, so hydroponics works fine, and I can also put it in soil, it will take root. But the problem is that this plant, now the new plant will revert back to green, and I will lose this yellow border that is specific to this particular variety of Sansevieria called Laurentii. So it will just revert back to green. So if you want the same variety and the same variegation and the color, you will have to go for rhizome or root division. If you do plant leaf propagation, then it will revert back to green. So that is something to keep in mind. Now let's look at fertilizing this particular type of plant. Now the Sansevieria is a very hardy plant, it will grow without you fertilizing it, but if you want to look at fertilizing, you should do so during the growth season. So when you see new shoots and new leaves coming up, it is good to fertilize it. So in an environment like this, I live in Singapore where the plant grows pretty much through the year because there's no dormant period, we don't have winters. So if you live in a place where you have the dormancy period during the winter, then you avoid fertilizing it during that time, but rest of the time when it grows you can fertilize it. So I typically fertilize it about once in 2 to 3 months. So that being said, now the general upkeep of this plant. So typically when you go to a nursery, it's very easy to pick a healthy plant because in this case the leaf does all the talking. You don't really have to worry if the leaves look good and bright and beautiful, you know that it's a healthy plant, so you just bring it home and you don't have to look at repotting that plant or adding anything to that soil base for some time, because the plant will just grow, and if you feel that you want to encourage further growth, it looks too big for its pot, only then you need to repot it. And when you repot it, look at a well draining soil base. So you get ready-made soil mixtures on the market that are good for succulents, and you can use that for the snake plant. Otherwise you can mix your garden soil with some well draining elements such as sand or vermiculite, that sort of substance, to make it, even some amount of peat moss to make it more airy, and so that the water excess moisture can drain away. So overall it's an incredibly easy plant to care for, and you can get one just about anywhere very easily, and it's a great good looking option for indoors. The second plant that we're going to be talking about today is similar to the first, the Sansevieria, in terms of its care routine and even propagation and few other things like that. So the second plant I picked is the aloe vera. Now the aloe vera is an extremely popular plant because it has so many health benefits, and it's typically seen as an outdoor garden plant, directly planted outdoor in the soil. But for many of us who don't have that sort of option, aloe vera can also be a great indoor plant in my personal experience. So for anyone living in tropical country, the aloe vera plant will do just as well indoors if you can put it in a spot which gets about 5 to 6 hours worth of bright indirect sunlight as well. So the light requirements, like I said, for this plant is it does not prefer dark spots. So ideally, if your house has a window, a kitchen window, or a small little balcony, or any place where you can place it with where it gets 5 to 6 hours worth of sunlight, then it should be fine. It will grow really, really well. Watering requirements, the aloe vera is a type of succulent, so as most succulents go, it does not prefer a very moist bed of soil on a constant basis. It likes to dry out, so it prefers dry soil, and you can just water it once in a while. Again, like the Sansevieria, you can water it about once a month or once a fortnight, depending on how hot it is and how quickly your soil dries out, and it should do well. That is done. So the light and watering requirements is very similar to the Sansevieria. Now looking at the pruning requirements, so typically again the aloe vera is not a plant that you want to prune just for pruning's sake, but you will prune the leaves for its health benefits. You can use the gel within the leaves for a variety of home beauty treatments, be it for your skin, for your hair, address burns or any sort of skin wounds. So when you prune the leaves, the aloe vera plant does not get affected, it will continue to grow and thrive. The other time that you can look at actually cutting the leaves is for propagation. Like with the Sansevieria, the aloe vera also grows by propagating leaf cuttings. Now you can just cut any bit of leaf and place it in some well draining soil, and it roots up pretty fast and grows very easily. So in terms of fertilizing, again like the Sansevieria, it's a very hardy plant, you do not need to fertilize it. But if you really want to do so, you can go for a phosphorus rich fertilizer, because it is just foliage heavy, but you can avoid that as well. It's not really mandatory. Other than that, the general upkeep, like I said, it's a succulent. So as with succulents, if you're going to be repotting or propagating your aloe vera, then do so in a well draining potting mix. Like I said, you get some specific potting mixes for succulents on the market, which you don't have to break your head over. You can get it ready and just pot your plant. But if you're making your own mix, then garden soil plus a well draining medium such as sand or vermiculite, perlite, etc. would be an ideal option for the aloe vera. So the third plant that I want to talk about today, which is a great option for indoor plants and for absolute beginners as well, is the Chlorophytum comosum. It's commonly called the spider plant or the spider ivy or even a ribbon plant. Now this is an incredibly easy plant to grow. You really cannot go wrong with it. So let's look at the light requirements first. Now this is a plant that does not like to be kept out in direct sunlight. It likes indirect bright sunlight, so keeping it indoors is perfect. You can keep it next to your window or in a brightly sunlit room and it should do well. You can hang this plant because of the way the foliage trails down, and it produces a lot of these little spider plants called pups. Now these pups actually trail down, so it will be nice if it is in a hanging sort of a setup or on a tall table where these the foliage and the pups can trail down. So that is the light requirements. Now the watering requirements for this plant is that it does like to be watered. It's not something like the Sansevieria or the aloe vera where you can forget to water it for weeks at a stretch. So once a week watering sort of schedule is ideally adhered to. I water my plant once a week. In fact, I got this particular plant only recently and it's not in great condition, but because this is a plant that is so easy to propagate and so easy to grow, I wouldn't mind picking up plant which is not at optimal condition from the nursery if I get a good deal on it, which is what I did. So you can see that this particular plant has a lot of edge tip burns. So this is typically sunburns. It's come from keeping the plant in too bright of a location and watering it too little. So if you keep the plant in indirect bright sunlight, then I would suggest once a week thorough watering should be more than ideal. Now looking at the pruning requirements, this plant once again, as far as the foliage goes, does not require any specific pruning, but as you can see these pups, you can prune these pups, you can cut these pups because they come with their little nodal roots and put them in water. So it's a great option for hydroponics, as well as you can put it in soil and create more plants from these pups. So it's incredibly easy to propagate. Now looking at the fertilizer requirements, again it's a foliage heavy plant, which means any fertilizer which is higher phosphorus will do well for it. I don't go into these specifics. I typically just use seaweed solution as a plant tonic for all my plants, and I use the fish emulsion as a plant fertilizer again for all my plants. So something like that should work just fine. It is typically pest and infestation resistant like the Sansevieria and the aloe vera. I haven't seen too many pest problems with this. So the overall upkeep for this plant is easy. In terms of soil too, it grows very well, very easily like the pothos. Just about any garden soil, garden mix will work well for it. You don't have to overthink it. If you've just started on your journey of indoor gardening and having plants, then it's a plant that can give you a lot of confidence because it's very hard to kill, and it will tell you when you're underwatering it with these sort of tip leaf burns. It doesn't die so easily on you, and it's very easy to propagate. So I think it's a plant that can give you incredible confidence and is a great addition to your indoor garden because it just looks so beautiful. So now the fourth plant that we are going to talk about, which is a great option for indoor plants and for people who want plants that are hard to kill and very easy to maintain, is obviously the most popular plant of all time, the pothos. So now the pothos again come in a lot of varieties, and I have a few here, the golden pothos of course, and the pothos enjoy. When it comes to light requirements, I find pothos is extremely fuss free. So it grows just about anywhere really. It can tolerate low light conditions. It likes bright indirect sunlight, and I've seen it grown even in areas with direct sunlight. So depending on where it grows, the leaves obviously have some difference because depending on how much sunlight they get or how little sunlight they get, you will see more of flecking or variegation on the leaves, and the leaves will be bigger or smaller. So now when it comes to watering requirements, again the pothos isn't fussy at all. It can go for quite a few periods of drought without regular watering. So if you forget to water your pothos on a regular basis, it will not die on you. It will still survive. So it's very hardy, and in fact I would suggest you don't overwater your pothos. So once a week sort of watering, if your plant is getting bright indirect sunlight, should be fine. I in fact water this particular fellow and the one here, of course, the Enjoy pothos, only about once in a fortnight. So I go 2 weeks without watering. And the plants that are in water, because pothos is a plant that takes root very easily in water, is great for hydroponics. So it's something that if it's already in water, you can change the water about once in 2 weeks, but if you forget to do so, even once a month works. Now for the pruning requirements, typically you don't prune this plant unless you want, let's say, a more bushy top. So then you prune the trailing vines so that it becomes bushier on the top, or if you want more long trailing vines, you avoid cutting it down. Now if you see a yellow leaf, you can just remove it or it will fall off naturally anyway. And for fertilizing, you can fertilize this plant obviously during growth season, and if you're in a tropical country, then it grows pretty much all through the year. So you can look at fertilizing it about once a month or once in 2 months, and that works just fine. Typically the nurseries give you these seedlings in these plants in peat moss. So I've just left some of them in that sort of peat moss. So now this one is still in the nursery pot, that is. So and it's growing fine. I would want to repot this guy in some time, so I'll look at doing that. But when I do that, like I've repotted this plant in garden soil. So I've just gone for a garden soil plus peat moss mixture and planted it, and it is doing really well. This one obviously is in water and no requirements when it comes to water. It's just normal tap water and it does just fine. So these are the requirements for the pothos. It's incredibly easy to grow overall, and it's extremely pest and infestation resistant. I would really suggest it as a great plant to start with and a beautiful plant to add to your indoor garden. We've come to the end of the video, and it's time to talk about the fifth plant, which I feel is a great indoor plant option and ticks pretty much all the check boxes that I have. So we are going to be talking about my favorite, the ZZ plant. Now this plant, when I got it from the nursery, it had about 4 stems with leaves, and everything else that now the plant sports has grown in the past couple of months. I would say about past 3 months. Now let's look at the light requirements. This plant, and like the Sansevieria, can perform well in low light situations, but it prefers bright indirect sunlight. So indoors is anywhere next to a window, or even if you don't have a window but you have a brightly lit room, this plant will do well. When it comes to the watering requirements, once again, like the Sansevieria, it does not require to be watered too often. You can water it once in a month, or sometimes you can take a little longer, once in 1.5 months if you've kept it in a very shaded location and it's not receiving too much of bright sunlight. So I personally water this guy once in a month or maybe a month and a week or so, and it's really fuss free. Now when it comes to pruning this, I don't really prune the ZZ plant. I have a relatively small one here, but if it gets really big, which it can, in terms of really bushy and really tough to maintain, or you want to keep it in that particular planter without having to repot it, but it's getting too big, then you can prune it. And in terms of fertilizer, then once in about 2-3 months. Otherwise, again, it doesn't really need a fertilizer on a regular ongoing basis. Again, a phosphorus rich fertilizer will do well. Other than that, in terms of pests, it's relatively pest and infestation resistant. But if you do see any pests on it, you can use neem oil and that should do the job. If you see any leaf rot, which is, like I said, a bacterial or a fungal infection which presents itself in terms of leaf burn and spots on the leaf, then you might want to check the soil and check the roots for any root rot, because root rot is essentially the death knell for this plant, because it does not prefer moist soil conditions. It prefers to be in dry soil like the Sansevieria. If you are planting it at home, then use garden soil with a mixture of some amount of peat moss and vermiculite or perlite, and that should be fine, which is what I've done. In terms of propagation, it can be a little tricky because ideally you do rhizome division like you do with the snake plant, but you don't want to do it in a way that can kill the mother plant. So it's not something that I would suggest if you're just beginning out and you've just got a new plant from the nursery. You can do stem cuttings with leaf and propagate that in soil, but it does take quite some time to root, so it's something that you'll have to be incredibly patient with. But other than that, this plant is just my favorite among these 5 plants for indoor plants. If you like this video and you would like to see more videos on plant care, home decor, DIYs, then do consider subscribing and stay tuned for my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day.